In this video, I'm going to share my experience using dry guide coat so you can get good results on sanding, finding flaws, issues that need to be addressed while doing your body and paint, your body primer in the sanding stage area. This video is not going to be edited. I'm just going to do a fast video. It's for the DIY entry-level beginners. I'm just learning how to paint, and I do my own projects, and I'll just share what's been successful for me and what tips that I've learned from professional body shop workers. And here I'm getting ready with a longboard DuraBlock, and I'm using 240 grit sandpaper adhesive with dry guide coat. And I'll show a picture at the end of the video of the products that I have used on this project. It's a 78 Camaro, and I took the car apart, and I'm doing 2 doors, 2 fenders at this particular time. I did bring the panels down to the metal using an Eastwood contour drum sander, and I did etching primer. Before that, I used a wax and grease remover, and then the etching primer, and then an epoxy primer. And then I did body filler in the areas that needed body filler, although I did pull the dents out to minimize the amount of body filler required to get a flat panel. And it was a lot of work. It took several days, and I have content of that process that I'll put at a later time. But for now, I'll just do the guide coat process. And this is over body work that had been done, sanded down to 40 grit, 80 grit, 120 grit, and 220 grit. And then it brought a lot of the material down to bare metal in certain sections. So I did a coat of epoxy primer, and then 2 good coats of filler primer, and I let it dry for a day, and now I'm doing the dry guide coat. And as you can see, that guide coat, it's a powder that I'm using, and it's like a hockey puck, and you put the powder on that hockey puck, and it's like a sponge, and you apply it over the entire panel that's going to be sanded. And on this DuraBlock, it's a long block with adhesive 240 grit sandpaper, and I'm sanding the 2 coats of 2K urethane filler primer. And on that sanding process, basically I go in cross sections like X pattern sanding, and I try to move around across the whole panel to not stay in one particular panel. But with the guide coat, you can kind of tell where to move by keeping the consistent of the sanding. I know where to sand a little more to keep an even panel because of the guide coat fading away, like all the way to the left. I haven't even touched that, so I know I need to move over to my left to address that section. And I just keep on going in X pattern across the entire panel. I'm using Harbor Freight stands, and these panels, even though they're gutted, it's just bare metal, they're very heavy. And for the 78 Camaro, they have big, large doors. It's a 2-door sports coupe, and you can see the weight of the rack kind of shaking, and it did make it a little difficult to sand. Although I don't apply too much pressure, I'm letting the sandpaper do all the work and the sanding block do all the work, and I'm using my body to try to hold the rack still from shaking a lot. So if I could do this a little better, I would get maybe design stronger rack system or support so the panels can be more stationary and not move. And it's good to wear a dust mask because the sanding part, material, the guide coat and the primer, it's very dusty, and it's good to have a respirator or a paint mask or something to protect your lungs. And so as I continue sanding, I'm looking for low spots, and when I sand the entire panel from 240, depending on the condition of the panel, I'm already seeing that there's some scratches from the 40 grit. Even though I use an 80 grit to try to eliminate the 40 grit scratches, not all of them came off. And so the 40 grit is there. I'm going to try to sand the best I can without sanding off all my material. But if the panel is nice and flat, and any low spots get eliminated just by sanding at this process with the 240 grit long block, I'm gonna reprime the entire panel again with the 2K urethane filler primer, which I'll show at the end of the video. And hopefully that would build up the panel, build up material, fill in the scratches, and basically repeat the process of what I'm doing now. This video is for beginners, and it's the process that I'm using. There may be other ways, even using, air tools, air sanders and stuff. But, when you're a beginner, sometimes you don't have all those tools. And me doing this car mostly all by hand, I feel I have better control using the hand tools, and it's just what I've been, learning with, is using the hand sanding blocks. And here, as I sanded this portion of the panel, the little darker areas are actually low spots. But I barely started sanding this panel, so I have a lot of material left. I have a lot more that I can continue sanding to try to eliminate all of that guide coat, and have a nice flat panel. Although I still am going to reprime it because I need to get those 40 grit scratches out. And so I'll show you a picture of the products that I'm using, which is this primer here, and I'll give a better shot on a still shot of the products. And I hope this helps somebody. I just used a Harbor Freight HVLP. It was about $75-$80 when I bought this gun. I've used it several times. I've used it for primers, base coats, clear coats. I use the same gun for the entire project. It works great. And that's the sandpaper, that's the dried guide coat, and a lot of this stuff I received from Amazon. That's the etching primer, although I did use an epoxy primer after the etching primer. And then that's, of course, the filler primer. And there's another filler primer that I have as a backup. That's the body filler I used, and it works great, sands good, and it's about $40 a gallon. It's affordable product. And so thanks for watching, and I hope this helps somebody.